It is February 2nd, 1969 at 7:30 in the morning, and the groundhog saw his shadow. Chicago residents are not so fortunate to see the groundhog discover his shadow today because according to the Chicago Tribune, the Brookfield Zoo only has one groundhog who has lived his entire life indoors. Ray Pauley, the Brookfield Zoo curator, said he'd only shiver if we put him outside. Happy Groundhog's Day, everybody. This is Emily Norfolk reporting to you live from Northwestern University. There is a lot happening around the world right now, but let's start local. I have a copy of the Daily Northwestern in front of me, my go-to source for news. A resident advisor of McCulloch Dorm tried to charge a dorm resident with having a girl in his room past 4 a.m. The Judicial Board recently enacted a 24-hour parental rule, so the resident should be dismissed. The RA is not satisfied and is trying to go over the Judicial Board and take the case to the University Discipline Committee. In other news, 3 fraternities must appear in front of the Interfraternity Council for breaking 2 windows at the Delta Tau Delta House and Alpha Tau Omega, and Pi Kappa Alpha must go on trial for a snowball fight that broke windows in both houses. It seems the winter has got Northwestern students feeling a little morose. Another Northwestern student, Dave Kenny, is also feeling a little ill-tempered. Kenny was indicted in a San Francisco district court for draft refusal. If he refuses induction at a future trial, he could serve up to 5 years in federal prison. His refusal to be drafted stems from his opposition to the Vietnam War. He said, "How can they still maintain the draft system? Is it not punitive?" The Daily Northwestern seems to have taken on an objective role in their portrayal of the Dave Kenny story. However, there is still a tinge of advocacy journalism occurring due to the Daily's choice to publish the story in the first place, as well as some charged language that they use. It is day 5 of the University of Chicago sit-in, and students will still not budge after the unfair firing of Professor Marlene Dixon. A cartoon drawing sits dead in the center of the article from the Daily Northwestern, depicting an artsy student holding a guitar with a protest sign that reads, "Rehire Marlene." The sign is collecting cobwebs, adding dramatic effect to show that the sit-in has been dragging on. This cartoon is an example of advocacy journalism. It seems that the writer of the story felt empathetic towards the teacher and the students that were demonstrating. This is probably due to the fact that the writer of the story is another college student. Now it's time for a quick ad reel.
Summer in Europe, round trip Chicago to London, guaranteed departure only $219. Leave June 13th, return August 14th.
Like money? Rix is now hiring part-time male help and also delivery men with cars. Apply at Rix, 817 University, or call 869-6600.
Special low rates for charter buses and the bus service. Call Marlin Bus Service 673-3225.
Kazar Lake Camp for girls. Lovell, Maine. Now accepting applicants for summer counseling positions. References required. Contact John Lambert, 973-5966.
The Chicago Tribune is known to report on regional news in the Chicago area and major newsworthy events. But recently, stories range from conflict in the Middle East to cooking techniques to a story about a fat man. The headline reads, "The Candid Story of a Former Fat Man." The story follows Bill Mackey on his journey to lose weight and start dieting. The story is very anecdotal and feels almost like a creative writing piece rather than the objective journalism that is usually expected from the Trib. The story also doesn't even feel very newsworthy. Why do we care that this man is fat? I think we care because this piece was an example of one of the first lifestyle pieces. In the news today, it is common to see pieces about losing weight or getting in shape, but this feels super unexpected to be on the cover of the Chicago Tribune. In this issue, the Chicago Tribune also reports on President Nixon speaking to former President Eisenhower in the hospital. They talk about the crisis in the Middle East. The story is followed up by a piece on the incident in Gaza Strip. Israeli troops entered Gaza to find thousands of Arab schoolgirls throwing stones at them. The troops charged the group of thousands of girls ages 11 to 18 with nightsticks. 100 ended up injured. 3 Gaza women were then jailed by Israeli military on the charge of spying and aiding guerrillas. It seems that international tensions are running high. Between the U.S. involvements in the Middle East and Vietnam, foreign reporting occupies the news.
It is exploding, violence flaring, bullets loading. You're old enough to kill, but not for voting. You don't believe in war, but what's that gun you're toting? And even the Jordan River has
This song, titled Eve of Destruction, written by P.F. Sloan and sung by Barry McGuire, protests the Vietnam War. The media headlined this song as everything that is wrong with the youth culture and thought it was something he had written to make a profit. News sources even accused him of being a communist dupe. Now let's turn to David Brinkley from NBC to hear about the federal government's spending wastes and the conflict between Iraq, Jordan, and Israel.
In Congress, there is a growing interest and growing anger at the reports of fantastic waste and inefficiency in the Pentagon's buying and using of military hardware. The new Deputy Secretary of Defense, David Packard, has been assigned to investigate it. A few days ago, the Washington Post published the substance of a private study of military hardware, its cost and performance. The news in it was nearly all bad. In brief, the complicated weapons the Pentagon keeps buying nearly always cost far more than predicted, and their performance is far below what is predicted.
At this time, the public was skeptical of the government, and people wanted to know what the majority of federal spending was going to. Now Brinkley will tell us about what's going on in the Middle East.
Iraq and Jordan said Israeli warplanes attacked northern Jordan 3 times today, and they said 2 were shot down. Israel said there was only 1 attack, not 3, and that no planes were shot down.
Now let's go across the pond. 2 stories from the Illustrated London News talk about scientific discovery and challenging proven theories. First, let's hear from Samuel Shenton and the Flat Earth Research Society. This group believes that despite all other scientific facts, the Earth is flat. This is no scam. The Flat Earth Research Society is just one of several other organizations that are working to prove the Earth is not spherical. Shenton says, all those humps and bumps which are put in front of our eyes in photographs are simply distortions of the camera. This profile reveals the struggles of a flat earther and the ridicule and mockery they are subjected to. I find this story interesting because it reveals a culture and a belief that is excluded from the news in the United States. Another story from the Illustrated London News takes us from a terrestrial place to an extraterrestrial place. UFOs. The Theosophical Society in Great Britain is working to uncover the origin of UFOs. So far, they have 2,500 members that have firm beliefs in UFOs and the scientific study behind it. Despite their interest in uncovering the truth behind unidentified flying objects, the society aims to reconcile the bonds between religion, science, and philosophy.
Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom.
Now, a brief intermission while we enjoy Bowie, Space Oddity.
Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2, check ignition, and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade.
While the media and music may seem like separate entities, a lot of the songs written during the 1960s reflect relevant events that were covered by the news.
Time to leave the capsule if you dare.
An issue from the India Times covers many bases, such as the decreasing tiger population, renaming India, a rabies incident, and the importance of education. The India Times is an interesting publication because it doesn't follow a specific style of reporting. A lot of stories are anecdotal, and the paper feels almost like a blog rather than hard news. Let me show you what I mean. This quote floats loosely above an article about tiger endangerment. When a man wants to murder a tiger, he calls it sport. When a tiger wants to murder him, he calls it ferocity. This is an example of a charged statement that has very little background context. The quote can be seen as advocating a position against poaching, but it could also be viewed as a creative way to introduce a story.
Goes in, back to Orr, quick shot, score! Bobby Orr with 22 seconds left! Bobby Orr!
Next up, we have Bobby Orr. Sports Illustrated just released its new issue on Bobby Orr, the pro ice hockey player for the Boston Bruins. Sports Illustrated fawns over the Bruins' achievements this season and projects that they will be successful for 20-plus years to come. While the piece on Jour is very informative and factual, it feels almost like an advertisement or marketing campaign for the Boston Bruins. Sports Illustrated is shamelessly promoting the Bruins and their achievements from this season. The news on February 2nd, 1969 covered a variety of topics from profiles and opinion pieces to advertisements to political conflicts. There was not one set event that set off the media, but rather a whirlwind of nuggets of information. We heard Brinkley talk about the Middle East, and the Daily Northwestern exposed some rowdy fraternities. The biggest trap that news consumers fall into is only reading and listening to the publications and sources that they know. Each news source that I read had a different tone and objective. The London Illustrated News gave insights on groups that I wouldn't usually know about. The Daily Northwestern kept me up to date on campus occurrences, and NBC gave me the rundown on what is happening internationally. I recognize that not all consumers have access to the same types of resources, and that I absorb news from primarily white-run publications. Most of the stories in the news are about white males, and minorities are almost exclusively excluded from news coverage. Despite the fact that the majority of these publications are very white, they did a great job of reporting objectively and not allowing too much bias to seep in.
So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me.
Once again, happy Groundhog's Day, everybody. This is Emily Norfolk from Northwestern University, signing off.
If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me.